Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and this is where I talk about all the bookish things that I love. So for today's video, I am going to be doing some fantasy romance recommendations. This is one of my favorite subgenres of romance. I started out as a fantasy reader, but learned that my favorite part of fantasy was the romance, so I started reading romance. But I still do love a good fantasy romance. So I have some that I wanted to recommend to you. I think I have 6. Yes, I think I have 6. So first I want to preface this by saying I have absolutely no idea what the difference is between fantasy and paranormal. So some of these might be paranormal. I really just don't know the difference. So if you know the difference, let me know. But I apologize if some of these are labeled as paranormal and not fantasy. But we're just gonna jump right in. So the first one is one that I have recommended before on my channel, but I needed to include it, and that is From Blood and Nash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I wanted to include this book because the next one in the series, which is called A Crown of Gilded Bones, I'll put a picture, is coming out on April 20th, and I am so excited. So if you haven't read this, it's a great time to read this and the second one now that the third one is coming out. I cannot wait. I am going to read it the day of. I've already pre-ordered the audiobook and the physical copy, so I am so excited and I cannot wait. I've already seen some people who've read arcs of it and actually really liked it, so I'm really excited. So if you don't know what the series is about, this is about a girl named Poppy who is what is known as the Maiden. And all she's told is that she is responsible and for all the other people's ascension, that she is a required person, a very special person for the continuation of the human race. And so you don't really know, she doesn't really know what the ascension is. She just knows that it's something that people want. It's a desired thing, and only the noble people get to ascend. So as a result of her being the Maiden, she is not allowed to be touched. She's not allowed to be even seen. She has to wear a veil. She's not allowed to interact with people. She has to be secluded away from people. When she does go out in public, she wears a veil. She has like guards with her. And so one day Poppy decides that she wants to experience the world a little bit. So she sneaks out and she goes to this gambling place, and she sees one of her guards, and before he can recognize her, she runs upstairs and she hides in this room, and she ends up meeting this guy and kissing him, and they are wearing masks so they don't know who the other person is, or she's wearing a mask so he doesn't know who she is, but he's not wearing a mask so she can see him, and he's this beautiful man. And the next day she is at home, she wakes up, she goes out, and she meets her new bodyguard, and it is the guy who had kissed her the night before. So his name is Hawk, and then it is a romance between the two of them. But it has so many twists and turns. It has werewolves, it has vampires, it has so many things. Poppy is such a badass. There's this one scene where she just like goes up onto the roof and she just like is a killer with a bow and arrow, and it's amazing, and I just love her so much. I love her relationship with Hawk. I love her relationship with the other people and like learning about what is actually true, what she's been told her whole life, what's actually real, and what has been lies. And it's just so interesting and so fun, and I would highly recommend reading it. It's so worth it. I know it's a little chunky, but it's so worth it. So that's the first one. Then I wanted to talk about this is actually the second one. This one's called Restless Slumber, but the first one is called Fortune the Sworn. I don't own the first one for some reason. I only own the second one. I think it was in a subscription box, but this is the second one. it's also amazing. So this is the Fortuna Sworn series. First one's called Fortuna Sworn. This one's called Restless Slumbers. The third one is called Deadly Dreams, and then the cover reveal for the fourth one just came out, and it's called Beautiful Nightmares, and the covers are just stunning. Look at that. But this series is about a girl named Fortuna who is a creature known as a nightmare, where she can like make people see their worst nightmares. And so the series starts with her brother has gone missing, and so she is trying to find him. Nobody's been able to find him, and this man shows up, and he is a fae, and he says, I'll take you to your brother. I know where your brother is, and I can take you to him, but you have to marry me first. And that's how it starts, and it's so good. The male characters in this are fantastic. I love them. Colith, Lori, they're both amazing. So good. Fortuna is awesome. She's such a badass. It's like dark fae fairy fantasy romance. So good. The author is KJ Sutton. This is an indie published author. Kelsey is awesome. She is so cool, and I just love all of it. I love all of her books. The next one that I want to mention is one that I read actually recently. I read it in March, and that is A Promise of Fire by Amanda Boucher. This is a library copy, so ignore the... It's an ex-library copy, so ignore the stickers on it, but this series is so awesome. I've only read the first book, but there are 3, I think, in the series, and I own the second one, so I have to continue with the series. I have to read it, but I absolutely loved the first one, gave it 5 stars. This one is harder to explain, but it's about a girl named Kat who is she is what's known as a kingmaker. Kingmakers only exist every like 100 or so years, and their power or talent is that they can tell when people are lying. So that is a very sought after power for like politicians to have. So leaders of kingdoms try and get a kingmaker on their side in order to tell who is deceitful in their kingdom, who's lying to them. And so Kat is has run away. She's hiding. She's in hiding, and she's working at a circus pretending to be a soothsayer. And this guy named Griffin knows who she is, and she doesn't know that Griffin knows who she is, and so he shows up, and he asks for her to tell him his future, and they end up scuffling and finding out, and he confirms that she is the kingmaker, and so he basically kidnaps her and makes her go with him kind of against her will back to his kingdom, because his family has recently taken over one of the kingdoms. There are like a bunch of different kingdoms, so his family has recently taken over this kingdom, and his family is human. They don't have magical powers. There's nothing like fantastical or paranormal about them, but they need somebody who is fantastical on their side, and so his goal is to get Kat, the kingmaker, to be on his side. And this book is a fantasy romance, so it's also Kat's relationship with Griffin, and it's so good. It's so good. I gave it 5 stars. Immediately I was like, I did not expect half of the things that happened. It was so unexpected. It was so exciting. Very twist and turning. Again, there's also a lot of mystery because you don't know who Kat's actual background is, where she comes from, and it's a very she's very secretive. She knows all of these tricks and things, and she has nightmares, and she has scars on her body, and Griffin and Griffin's warriors who are escorting her back to the kingdom are trying to figure out like things about her once they find out that she is like a perfect shot with a bow and arrow, and she is a excellent swordsman, and she has horrific nightmares, and she has scars all along her back, and all these things that she is hiding, and they're trying to figure out like more about her background, but she doesn't want to know. So it's so interesting. It's so good. I need to read the second one. I would highly recommend it. Also, this one is probably my favorite romance wise. I absolutely loved the romance in here. It was amazing. Okay, so the next ones that I wanted to mention, I don't have physical copies of, so I'll just put pictures on the screen. But the first one that I want to talk about is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. So A Touch of Darkness is a Hades and Persephone retelling, and I haven't read many Hades and Persephone retellings, but I've read a couple, and this one is my favorite of the ones that I have read. Excuse me. This is my favorite of the ones that I have read. This one is about Persephone, who is she's the daughter of Demeter, and Demeter has kept her secluded for most of her life. A lot of the other gods don't even know she exists. She is a minor god, and she has been secluded in this greenhouse by Demeter for her entire life, and she hates it. She wants to be part of the real world. She wants to be human. She doesn't have powers. She can't grow things. She's supposed to be the goddess of spring, but she can't grow anything. So she actually like kills things when she tries to touch it. So she just wants to be human. So she is actually in college, and she wants to be a journalist, and she gets this job at a journalism news place, and she and her best friend go to a club one night, and they go to Hades Club. And Hades is like known for making deals with people, and Persephone thinks that Hades is so awful. She thinks that he doesn't make the deals like even like able to be completed. Like she doesn't think that the deals are fair, and she has issue with this. So she wants to write this like journal article about Hades, and like a scathing article about Hades. And at this club, at Hades' club, she ends up accidentally basically making a deal with Hades. And Hades says that she has to grow something in the underworld. And then it goes from there. But I actually really enjoyed it. I loved the romance. It was steamy and fun, and I would recommend the audiobook because I have heard that in the physical book they have like some like grammatical things, but I didn't notice in the audiobook, and the other people who I've talked to who listened to the audiobook over reading it loved the audiobook, so I would recommend the audiobook over reading it physically. But it's so good. I really enjoyed it, and I really need to read more Hades and Persephone retellings because I really like this one. Then the next one that I want to talk about is Queen Takes Nights by Jolie Sue Burkhart. This one is about a girl who is has been on the run for most of her life. She is her parents were murdered in front of her, and since then she's like very much been on the run from the monsters. And in the beginning of the book, she is on the run. She is has to leave her job one night, and it's dark outside, and she doesn't like to walk alone in the dark because she doesn't want to get attacked by the monsters. But she ends up having to, and the monsters go to attack her, and these two men come and save her, and they can see the monsters, and most humans haven't been able to see the monsters, so she's like, oh my god, you can see them, you saved me, that's awesome. And they tell her that she is actually a vampire queen, and that she is like super rich, she's a queen, and that her mom was a queen, and that they are what are called her blood. They want to be her blood. Blood are basically knights that are sworn to protect the queen, and they are the ones that like feed the queen and pleasure the queen, and do whatever the queen wants. Basically, they're sworn to her. And so the book is a series of the main girl whose name I don't remember, learning more about being a queen and attracting more blood, and it's interesting. It is not for everyone. It is polyamorous. It is there is like blood play involved, lots of speaking about blood and the sharing of blood, and it's not for everyone, but I loved it, and it was very, very fun to read. It is reverse harem, so there are many, many men for the one woman. And each book, like, they add more characters. So I read the first 4 or 5, I think, and then I had to stop because there were like so many characters that I was like, oh my god, I can't even remember who's who anymore. But in the first one, it's really only the 2 men and then her, and then in the next ones they add more. But it's really good. I really loved the polyamorous aspect. I loved her relationship with all of them, with like all 3 of them together. It was really good. Very, very sexy, and would totally recommend. So the last one, the last one that I want to recommend is Slave to Sensation by Nalini Singh. I am late to the party. I had not read her Nalini Singh's Side Changeling series until last month, which is nuts because there are like a billion in this series, but this is the first one. And this was I first finally read it, and I need to continue because it's so cool and so interesting, and I really, really enjoyed it. So this is the book 1 in her Side Changeling series. So the main girl, whose name I don't remember, Sasha, sorry. So the main girl's name is Sasha. She is a Psy. Psy are basically these conditioned beings that don't feel emotions. They have been conditioned over time, and now when they're born, they just don't feel emotions. It's like their thing. But Sasha is flawed. She has known she's been flawed her entire life because she can feel emotions. So she is terrified of letting other people, all the other Psy, know that she's flawed, because Psy that are flawed go to this very scary kind of like mental institution where their brains are basically like wiped and then like remade. And she's terrified of it. Her mom took her there once when she was younger, and she just is absolutely so terrified of it. And so she's been hiding her whole life the fact that she feels emotions. It's been going pretty well for her until she meets Lucas. Lucas is a shifter. He is a jaguar shifter, and he and Sasha are working on a project together. They're like doing like a renovation or real estate type project. And so they have to spend a lot of time together. And Sasha has a hard time hiding her emotion, the fact that she feels emotions around Lucas. She started to feel new emotions that she's never felt before. She started to feel like very attraction and lust and horny, basically. And so she's struggling a bit, and she is having difficulty spending time with Lucas because she feels all these emotions when she's around him. Lucas is trying to find a Psy that he thinks is a serial killer. A lot of the shifter girls have been getting killed lately, and they think that one of the Psy have done it, but that none of the Psy like leaders are like dealing with it, like taking charge and like taking care of it. So he is trying to gain information from Sasha about the Psy net, which is the like link between all the Psy, and how to find out who this serial killer actually is. I thought it was so interesting, and I loved the like mates aspect of it. I loved her not being supposed to feel emotion, but having like a hard time hiding it around Lucas. It was so cute and super interesting, and I loved the mystery aspect of like who the murderer was. It was really, really cool. I really enjoyed it, and I'm definitely gonna have to continue with the series. I cannot believe I hadn't read it until now. So that's the last one. Those are all of the fantasy romances that I wanted to recommend in this video. I have many more that I could recommend, so I'm possibly will do another one later on. But that's it for now. Please like if you liked it and subscribe. It really helps my channel. But that's it, and I hope you